The girl who spat at Earth? Sailari stood at the edge of the landing dock, arms crossed, eyes full of anger. Her silver skin glowed under the station lights, and her sharp blue eyes stared at the image of Earth floating in the distance. She didn't blink. She didn't smile. She just whispered, "Disgusting planet." Then, without a second thought, she spat on the ground right in front of the Earth ambassador. The humans around her gasped. She really did it, one whispered. She spat at Earth, another muttered. The Earth ambassador, an old man with kind eyes, didn't react. He only nodded slowly and said, "Hatred is easy. Understanding takes time." Sailari didn't care. She turned away, her long white hair sweeping behind her like a blade. In her mind, humans were liars, murderers, and thieves. Her people, the Lissari, had lived peacefully until the war began. She had been only a child when Earth's warships appeared in the sky. Her mother had died in the first strike. Her brother disappeared. Her father, once a proud warrior, was left in a coma. She had every reason to hate. Now the war was over. Peace was declared. And yet, as punishment, or maybe as a joke, the Galactic Union had sent her to Earth as a peace representative, a Lissari girl who hated humans more than anyone else. The spaceship prepared for descent. Sailari sat alone. The other diplomats avoided her. Her reputation had spread across the stars. The girl who never smiled, the one who calls Earth a cursed ball of mud. Sailari didn't care. She had no interest in making friends. Her mission was simple: represent her people, attend useless meetings, and return home. She stared out the window and whispered to herself, "I will not stay a day longer than I must." But fate had different plans. As the ship entered Earth's atmosphere, something went wrong. The engines sputtered. Alarms blared. The lights turned red. "Brace for impact," the pilot shouted. Sailari's seat shook violently. She grabbed the armrests, trying to stay calm, but the memories hit her hard. The sound of falling bombs, the screams of her mother, the smell of burning metal. She froze. The ship crashed into a rocky hill just outside a human military zone. Fire erupted on one side. The door jammed. Panic filled the cabin. Everyone escaped except Sailari. She was pinned under metal debris, her leg trapped, her arm bleeding. Smoke filled her lungs. Her chest hurt, her vision blurred. "So this is how I die," she thought bitterly. On a human planet, surrounded by human trash. But just as her eyes were closing, she saw a shadow outside the wreckage. "Is someone in there?" a voice called out. It was a human voice, deep, rough, and full of urgency. Sailari stayed silent. Then she saw a hand pry open the twisted metal. A figure in a flight suit pushed through smoke and reached for her. "Hold on, I've got you," he said. "No," she whispered weakly. "Don't touch me." But he didn't stop. The human, his face covered in ash, blood on his temple, lifted the metal piece and pulled her out. She cried in pain as her leg moved, but he held her gently. His arms were strong, steady. She stared at him, confused. Why? Why would a human save her? He set her down near the grass, away from the fire, and quickly wrapped her bleeding arm with his own scarf. "You're safe now," he said softly, kneeling beside her. She blinked. "Why?" she asked. I hate humans." He smiled, tired but warm. "Good thing I don't hate Lissari." Then he passed out beside her. The rescue team arrived minutes later. Soldiers carried them both into a transport vehicle. Medical officers treated their wounds. No one asked questions yet. Sailari didn't speak either. She just sat there watching the human's face as he lay unconscious. Who was he? Why did he risk his life for her? She didn't even know his name. But something inside her had changed. Just a little. Just a crack in her wall of hate. She looked down at his jacket, still wrapped around her shoulders, and pulled it tighter. Maybe Earth wasn't as disgusting as she thought. Maybe. Sailari sat on the edge of the hospital bed, her leg wrapped in soft bandages. her arms stiff from the healing.
Kill.
Sunlight came through the wide glass window. It was Earth's sky, blue, bright, filled with white clouds. She had never seen such a sky before. On her planet, the sky was silver, always cloudy. Earth's air felt light. Too light. It made her chest ache in ways she didn't understand. But her mind wasn't on the sky. Her eyes stayed fixed on the other bed across the room. The human who saved her. He had been unconscious for 2 days now. His chest rose and fell slowly. Tubes ran from his arms. His flight suit lay folded on the chair beside him, torn, stained with blood and soot. His face had bruises, a cut on his cheek, and yet he looked peaceful. Too peaceful for a man who had nearly died pulling her out of wreckage. A nurse walked in and noticed her watching him again. The nurse smiled gently. "You've been awake since morning?" Sayalari nodded but said nothing. "He's tough," the nurse said. "Most wouldn't have survived the explosion. But that one, he's made of something stronger." "What is his name?" Sayalari finally asked, her voice quiet. The nurse looked surprised. "You didn't know him?" She shook her head. "He just appeared." The nurse glanced at the file in her hand. "Lieutenant Jack Ryden, pilot. No special rank, no medals, just a man who flies supply ships through dangerous zones." "Just a supply pilot?" Sayalari whispered. The nurse nodded. "Yes. Not even part of your escort team. He heard your ship was falling and flew straight into restricted airspace to reach you. He disobeyed orders to get there first." Sayalari looked back at him. Disobeyed orders? For her? A Lissari girl who had spat at Earth? It made no sense. Later that evening, she limped to his bedside. Her leg hurt, but she didn't care. She sat beside him and stared at the IV tubes. She hated the machines, the beeping, the strange smells, but she stayed. She didn't want to be alone. Not tonight. Then, without warning, Jack opened his eyes. She gasped and took a step back, startled. He blinked, looked around, then saw her. "Oh, you're alive," he said, his voice dry and hoarse. "I should be asking you that," she replied softly. He gave her a weak smile. "Good to see you're still as sharp as back in the fire." She sat back down slowly, not sure what to say next. "Thank you," she said finally. The words felt strange in her mouth. She had never thanked a human before. Jack just closed his eyes again and breathed out slowly. "I didn't do anything special." "That's not true," she replied, her voice firmer now. "You risked everything. For me." "Why?" He opened his eyes again and looked at her carefully. "You looked scared," he said simply. Her face froze. She remembered that moment. Trapped, smoke everywhere, her chest tight from fear. She had been terrified, and he had seen it. No one ever looked at her that way before, like she was someone worth saving. "I've never met a human like you," she whispered. "I'm not special," he said again. "You disobeyed orders. I've done worse," he grinned weakly. "But pulling someone out of a burning ship? That felt right." In the following days, they spoke more. Short talks at first, small questions and answers. He joked sometimes. She never laughed, but she began to respond. He told her about his favorite food, earth toast with melted cheese. She told him about the Lissari fruit called zarak, which could glow in the dark and sing when cut. He listened. No one had ever listened to her like that. One morning, when she walked into the room, she found a paper on her bed. A rough sketch. It was her, drawn in pencil, sitting by the window, hair flowing down, lost in thought. Underneath, written in bad handwriting, was a note. "Sorry I made your Earth visit painful. Hope this makes it better. Jack." She stared at the drawing, for a long time. Then she folded it carefully and placed it inside her small bag. That same day, a senior officer visited her room. He offered cold words and tight smiles. "The peace conference continues tomorrow. As Lissari delegate, your presence is expected. Sayalari looked out the window. "I'll go," she said, "but only if one person comes with me." "Who?" She pointed toward the other bed. The officer's face tightened. "A human? That's highly unusual." "He saved my life," she said. "That makes him my shield. It's Lissari tradition." The officer didn't argue again. Later, she told Jack. He looked confused. "Shield? That's a big honor, right?" he asked. She nodded slowly. "It means I trust you. With my life." He laughed gently. "You're strange, Sayalari, but in a good way." She looked away quickly to hide her blush. For the first time since leaving her home planet, Sayalari smiled just a little. Sayalari had seen hundreds of planets, but none like Earth. Everything felt too alive, too loud, too colorful, too open. The air smelled like flowers and dust. Human voices carried far, and strange birds made odd noises in the trees. The human city blinked with lights at night like the stars had fallen to the ground. She hated it. At least, that's what she told herself. That evening, Sayalari arrived at the small guest compound assigned to alien diplomats. The building was quiet, with only a few rooms and a garden in the back. Her private room had one bed, a small table, and a wide window that looked out at the mountains. She stood there, arms crossed, watching the sun disappear behind the hills. The sky turned orange, then pink. On her planet, dusk came with silence. Here, it came with music, bugs buzzing, wind chimes clinking, human laughter in the distance. It made her chest feel heavy. Her bag was still untouched on the floor. The Inkilia sketch Jack had drawn for her was inside, folded neatly. She hadn't told anyone she kept it. She didn't know why she did. She sat on the bed. It was soft, too soft. It sank under her weight, making her feel trapped. The walls were too white. The air smelled like soap. Nothing smelled like home. An hour later, someone knocked on her door. She didn't answer. Another knock. This time, a soft voice followed. "Ambassador Sayalari, something has been delivered for you." Curious, she opened the door slightly. A young human assistant handed her a small package, smiled nervously, and left. She opened it on the table. Inside was a tiny glass vase, with a single blue flower inside. A folded note came with it. "It's not a singing Zarek fruit, but this is Earth's moon bloom. Rare, quiet, and doesn't die fast. Reminded me of you." Jack Sayalari stared at the flower. It was small, delicate and glowing faintly in the dim light. She picked it up carefully like it might fall apart. It didn't. She placed it on the table beside the bed. For the first time in years, something warmed inside her. That night she couldn't sleep. She tossed, turned, and pulled the covers over her head. But her thoughts kept running in circles. Why? Did that human care so much? He wasn't part of her diplomatic circle. He had no orders to protect her. He had nothing to gain. And yet, he had saved her, given her his jacket, drawn her face, sent her a flower. Maybe it was all a trick. Human game. A way to break her pride. But then, why did he look so tired when he smiled? Why did his hands shake when he tried to sketch? Why did he say, "You looked scared," instead of pretending she was some powerful alien? He had seen her weakness, and not mocked her for it. The clock blinked, past midnight. She stood up and walked to the window. The garden below was quiet. Stars were out. Earth stars, not the ones she knew. A breeze passed through the trees. She saw movement on the path. It was Jack. He was limping slightly, walking slowly, holding a mug in one hand and talking to himself. His arm was still in a brace. Sayalari didn't think. She slipped on her cloak and quietly left her room. She walked, outside, her bare feet silent on the cool ground. He didn't notice her until she was just a few steps away. Jack turned, surprised. "Couldn't sleep either?" She shook her head. "No." They stood in silence. The wind was gentle. Somewhere far off, a dog barked. He offered the mug. "It's not real coffee," he said. "Alien-friendly herbal tea. The medics banned me from caffeine." She took it without a word and sipped. It was bitter, but warm. "Why are you awake?" she asked. Jack shrugged. "Bad dreams, planes crashing, smoke. I've seen too many wrecks. I guess my brain thinks I'm still in the middle of one." Sailari looked at him. "I had dreams too. Not of ships, of my mother. She used to hum when I couldn't sleep." He looked at her gently. "Do you want to talk about her?" She hesitated, then nodded. So they sat down on a stone bench under the moonlight. She spoke quietly, about her mother's soft hands, her gentle voice, how she used to comb Sayalari's hair with sea oil every morning. Jack listened. He didn't interrupt. He just sat there and listened. When she finished, she felt like something had been lifted from her chest. Later, as they stood again, Jack looked at her and said, "You know, I've flown past dozens of planets, but I never stopped to really see them. I never thought I'd have a conversation like this." "With someone who spat at your world?" she said, half smiling. He chuckled. "That just made it more exciting." She rolled her eyes. But her heart beat faster, and when he turned to walk away, she didn't stop him. She just stood in the garden a while longer, her hand still holding the empty mug, her skin still warm from the tea. For the first time, Earth didn't feel like a cage. It felt real, and maybe, just maybe, worth understanding. The next morning began peacefully. Sailari opened her eyes slowly, blinking against the soft golden light filling her room. The flower Jack had given her still stood on the bedside table, glowing, gently like a quiet promise. For the first time in weeks, she had slept without waking from nightmares. She stretched her arms and sat up. Outside the window, the garden swayed gently in the breeze. Human birds chirped in strange but cheerful songs. She could almost pretend Earth wasn't so bad. Almost. She stood up and reached for the new robe the staff had brought, a soft earth. Material, light and simple. She still preferred the battle-layered robes of her people, but this one didn't itch, and it smelled like lavender. She was brushing her hair when the door buzzed. "Who is it?" she asked. No answer. A second buzz. Her instincts sharpened. She moved slowly, her long fingers closing around the curved silver knife she always kept hidden inside her belt. A gift from her brother, back when she still had one. She pressed a button, and the door slid open. No one was there. She frowned and stepped into the hallway. It was empty. Quiet. The lights flickered once, odd for such a modern facility. Suddenly she felt it. Someone was watching. She turned. Too late. A figure in dark clothes rushed at her from behind a corner. The blade in his hand gleamed. Human-made. Short, fast, deadly. Sailari dodged barely, but the attacker slashed her shoulder. She hissed in pain and fell back, rolling. Her own blade came out in a flash, but she was still weak from the crash days ago. The attacker lunged again. She raised her arm to block, and the blade came down. But it never landed. A shout exploded behind her. "Hey!" A blur of motion. Boots, slamming the floor, someone charging forward. The attacker turned, startled, and was tackled to the ground. It was Jack, still in recovery clothes, one arm in a sling, moving like a man with nothing left to lose. He didn't hesitate. He struck the attacker across the face, knocked the knife away, and pinned him to the ground. "Guards!" he roared. "Call security!" More footsteps thundered down the hall. Soldiers grabbed the would-be killer, dragging him away. His face remained hidden under a dark mask. But Sailari saw the symbol burned into his glove, the red flame, an anti-alien extremist group that had protested her arrival. She sat on the floor, breathing hard, hand over her bleeding shoulder. Jack knelt beside her. "You okay?" She looked at him. "You followed me?" He shrugged. "Something didn't feel right. I saw someone near your hallway and got suspicious." "You're injured," she said. He smiled faintly. Better me than you. She stared at him, blood dripping from her shoulder, heart still racing. You could have been killed, she whispered. He looked into her eyes. So could you. The medical team rushed in moments later. They patched her wound, gave her something for the pain, and helped her to a chair. Jack refused treatment until they checked her first. Even as his own bruises worsened, he kept glancing at her, making sure she was okay. After the guards left with the attacker, a high-ranking Earth official entered the room. His face was pale, his voice tight. We deeply apologize, Ambassador. Sci-fi. This incident should never have happened. Your protection is our top priority. She nodded but didn't respond. Her eyes were still on Jack. Later, she was moved to a more secure wing. Guards outside the doors, cameras installed, protocols activated. No one entered without clearance. That night, she found herself unable to sleep again. But this time, it wasn't fear. It was confusion. Why did Jack keep saving her? He had no duty to her. He was just a pilot with no rank, no orders. He wasn't even supposed to be near the diplomatic wing. And yet, he was always there. She found herself outside his room just past midnight. The guard looked at her nervously. Ma'am, he's resting. I won't disturb him, she said. She stepped inside quietly. Jack was lying in bed, bruised and sore. He opened one eye when she entered and gave a tired smile. Hey, he said. You came to kill me too? She rolled her eyes. You're not that important. He chuckled, then winced. Ow, you're cold. She walked to his bedside, holding something behind her back. I brought something, she said. He raised a brow. A weapon? She shook her head and held it out. It was his drawing. The sketch of her he had made. She had taken it from her bag, framed it with a simple earth frame, and placed a Lisseri mark of protection at the corner. I thought, it deserved to be treated properly, she said. He looked at it, then at her. That's actually really sweet, he said softly. Thank you. She turned to leave. But before she opened the door, she said one more thing. You saved me again today. You didn't have to. But you did. He didn't reply. So she added quietly, You're not just my shield now. You're my friend. Then she walked out, leaving him wide-eyed, speechless, and smiling. It had only been 5 days since the attack, yet something had changed between them. Sayalari didn't say it aloud, but she trusted Jack, and not just because he saved her twice. He treated her like a person, not an alien problem. He joked when she needed peace, stayed silent when she needed space, and most strangely, he never asked for anything in return. Now, they walked together through the human base, her shoulder still healing, his sling finally gone. Officers passed them and stared. A Lissari and a human pilot side by side like old friends. Whispers followed them, but they ignored them. Are all Earth buildings this cold? Sayalari muttered. Jack grinned. That's rich, coming from someone with ice-colored skin. Ice is strong, unlike your bones, she said, smirking. He chuckled. So now you're joking? Should I be scared? Before she could answer, an emergency siren echoed through the base. Distress call detected from Sector 19. Human village under pirate siege. Immediate evacuation requested. Repeat. Sector 19 under attack. Sayalari stopped walking. Pirates? Jack's face changed. That's deep border territory. Mostly farmers. They won't survive long without help. Within seconds, soldiers ran past, rushing toward the hangar. Come on, Jack said, grabbing her hand without thinking. She pulled back. Wait, we're not assigned to this. Don't care, he said. If we wait for permission, they'll all be dead. He turned to leave, but Sayalari's voice stopped him. I'm coming with you. He looked back. You sure? She nodded. I don't need orders to protect the helpless. Inside the hangar, chaos swirled. Pilots scrambled, ships activated, weapons loaded. Jack headed to a small two-seat fighter. Not the fastest, but fast enough. He jumped into the front seat. Solari slid into the back, strapping in as if she'd done it 100 times, which she had. "You've flown before?" he asked. "I've flown better ships than this," she said calmly. The fighter roared to life. Within seconds, they were soaring into the sky, cutting through clouds, racing toward the danger zone. 30 minutes later, smoke rose from below. Duritio village had already been hit. Burning homes, broken vehicles, people running in every direction. Above them, 3 pirate gunships circled like vultures. "Hold on," Jack muttered, shifting the fighter into attack mode. He weaved through the smoke, dodging laser blasts, firing back. One pirate ship took a hit and spun out of control. "They're targeting civilians," Silari shouted. "We have to draw them away." Jack turned toward the enemy ships and blasted a flare. "Let's get their attention." The plan worked. 2 of the ships turned, chasing Jack's fighter away from the village. The dogfight began. They twisted through canyons, dipped through valleys. The enemy fired again and again, but Jack moved like water, slippery, unpredictable. In the back seat, Silari activated the rear guns. "I've got your 6. "Glad you do," Jack said through gritted teeth. One pirate ship fired a missile. Jack pulled the fighter hard left. Missile missed. Barely. Silari locked onto the ship. "Now," she said, and fired. Boom. One down. The other kept coming. "I'm out of charges," she shouted. "Then we do this old school," Jack replied. He looped the fighter around, diving under the pirate ship. Close, too close. So close Silari could see the enemy pilot's shocked face. Jack climbed high, then flipped the ship upside down, directly over the pirate craft. "Your turn," he said. She didn't ask what he meant. She jumped. Yes, jumped. Out of the fighter, onto the pirate ship, her blade in hand. She landed hard, rolled, and drove her blade into the cockpit glass. The pilot inside screamed and tried to shoot. Too slow. Silari stabbed through the panel, sparks flying. The ship spun out, crashed into the rocks. She barely jumped clear in time. When she stood up, her arm bleeding again, she saw Jack circling above. He landed nearby, rushed out of the fighter. "You're insane," he said, pulling her into a hug. A beautiful kind of insane. She didn't hug back at first. Then slowly, she did. "I had to protect them," she whispered. He pulled back, looking into her eyes. "You did." The villagers came out slowly, cheering. Some had never seen Elisari before. They didn't run. They didn't hide. They offered her food. Children gave her flowers. And for the first time, Silari accepted them. Not as enemies. Not as threats, as people. That night back at base, they sat under the stars. Jack handed her a small bandage. "You bleed a lot for someone who calls humans weak," he teased. She took the bandage and smiled. "Maybe Earth air made me soft." He looked at her seriously. "What you did back there, no one would have believed it. You saved that whole village." She looked up at the stars. "I didn't do it for Earth." "I know." She turned to face him. "I did it for you." The morning after the village rescue was quiet. Too quiet. The base officers were proud, even surprised by Silari's bravery. News of her jumping onto a pirate ship mid-air spread like wildfire across the command posts. For the first time since arriving on Earth, she was no longer treated as an alien problem, but as a hero. Yet Silari didn't feel like one. She stood, alone by the fountain in the garden, her hair still damp from a rushed shower, her wounds barely healing under her thin robe. Her hands trembled, though she tried to hide it. Her gaze stayed fixed on the water's surface, watching it ripple in slow circles. Jack found her there, holding 2 cups of warm herbal tea. He offered one without speaking. She took it silently. They sat on the stone bench, the same one where she had told him about her mother. He finally spoke. "Everyone's talking about you. Even the military channel played the story. Alien warrior girl saves human village." Silari didn't answer. He glanced at her. "You okay?" "No," she said quietly. Jack's smile faded. "Is it the wounds?" "No." she said again. It's the truth. That made him turn. What truth? She closed her eyes for a long second. Then she whispered, the war. The one that made me hate humans. Jack nodded slowly. It wasn't started by you, she said. He stiffened, confused. What do you mean? She set her tea down and looked at him. Really looked. I found old records, she explained. After my father died, I went through what remained of his things. Battle maps, secret files, data logs. Jack didn't interrupt. Sayalari's voice shook. The first attack wasn't from Earth. It was from a Lissari general acting without order. My people lied. They used Earth as the enemy to distract our citizens from internal corruption. Jack stared at her, stunned. My mother died, she went on, her voice breaking. Not because of your kind, but because of ours. The wind passed softly through the garden. Jack finally spoke, his voice low. Why didn't you tell anyone? I couldn't, she said. If I said it publicly, my people would call me a traitor. Earth would question our peace agreement. Everything could collapse. Jack swallowed hard. Why are you telling me now? Because I was wrong about you, she whispered. Jack looked away. She continued softer. I carried that hate like a shield. It made me feel strong. But it also made me blind. I didn't want to believe that I was wrong. That humans weren't the monsters I imagined. He didn't speak for a long time. When he did, his voice was quiet. My brother died in the war. Her eyes widened. Jack nodded slowly. He was a peacekeeper, shot down during the Lysari counterattack. We were told your people started it. He believed in peace till the end. I joined the force to honor him, not to fight. He looked up at the sky, his jaw tight. I hated Lysari for a while too, he admitted. I thought you were cold, arrogant, heartless. But then I saw you in that wreck, trapped, bleeding, scared, and I realized, you're just like us. She lowered her head. I'm sorry about your brother. Jack exhaled. And I'm sorry about your mother. There was a long silence. Then Sayalari said, we were both taught to hate. He nodded, and both smart enough to unlearn it. Later that day, a ceremony was held in the central hall. Medals were awarded, speeches given. Sayalari and Jack stood together on the stage. Her white Lysari uniform glowed under the lights. His human pilot suit was newly pressed. Applause rang out as they bowed, but the real moment happened after the crowd had gone. In the hallway outside the chamber, Jack handed her something small. It was a tiny box. She opened it, and inside was a polished silver pin, shaped like two hands reaching across stars. What is this? She asked. It's something my brother designed, Jack said. He believed that one day, Lysari and humans would fight side by side, not against each other. Sayalari touched the pin gently. Did he ever give this to anyone? Jack shook his head. No, you're the first. She looked at him, eyes soft. Then I'll wear it with honor. He stepped closer. You've changed me, Sayalari. I don't think I'll ever look at your kind the same way again. And you've changed me, she whispered. I came here hating humans. But now, I think I understand them. He smiled. That's all we needed from each other. She returned the smile, small, real, and full of something new. Not duty, not war, but hope. It had been 3 weeks since the battle over Sector 19. 3 weeks since the day Sayalari stopped looking at Earth as a curse. Now she stood on a platform in front of thousands of humans and aliens. Behind her, Earth's flag waved beside the Lysari crest, 2 worlds once at war, now standing in peace. The Galactic Peace Assembly had gathered for its final session. Leaders from across the stars filled the dome-shaped hall. Reporters buzzed around the edges like insects. Cameras floated in the air, recording every moment, and at the center stood the girl who once spat at Earth. Sayalari wore a new uniform, not the old Lysari war robes, but a white and silver suit that blended Earth and Lysari styles. over her heart. The silver pin Jack had given her, a symbol of peace, shone under the lights. She waited as the speaker introduced her. Ambassador Sailari of Lysar, survivor of the war, protector of the innocent, and now, symbol of what peace can truly become. A soft cheer rose from the audience. Sailari stepped forward to speak. She looked around. Her eyes found Jack, standing near the back, arms crossed, wearing his old pilot jacket like always. He gave her a small nod. Her voice rang clear. I once believed Earth was my enemy. I believed humans were destroyers, liars, monsters in flesh. I came here with hate in my blood. Silence filled the chamber. But hate, she continued, blinds us. It feeds on pain and leaves no space for truth. She paused. Truth is harder to carry. It asks us to face ourselves, not just others. She looked down at her hands. I met a human man who saved me not once but twice. He didn't know me. He had no reason to help. But he did. He saw a frightened girl in a burning ship and risked his life. She looked up again. And in return, I saw him too. Not as a human, but as a friend. A quiet murmur of agreement swept through the room. Sailari took a breath. I don't hate Earth anymore. Because Earth taught me something my own people forgot. Mercy, courage, and laughter in the middle of pain. She smiled faintly. I'm proud to call myself a peace guardian of both our worlds. And I swear, as long as I live, I will protect this fragile bond between us. She stepped back. The room erupted in applause, not forced, not polite, but real. After the ceremony, Sailari walked quietly into the garden behind the hall. The same garden where Jack had once handed her a simple mug of tea under the moonlight. She stood by the same bench. She heard footsteps and didn't have to look. You speak well when you want to, Jack said, walking up beside her. I practiced, she replied with a small smile. He held out a new cup. You remembered the tea, she said. Some traditions are worth keeping, he replied. They sat in silence for a moment. Do you ever think about going back? He asked. She nodded. To Lysar? Yes, but not yet. He looked surprised. Why not? She looked around. Because Earth still has things to teach me. Jack sipped his tea. Like what? She glanced sideways at him. Like patience, kindness, terrible cooking. He laughed. She added softly, and maybe love. Jack nearly choked on his tea. She smirked. Relax. I said maybe. Still, he grinned. You've come a long way from the girl who wanted to burn down the embassy. Sailari turned serious. That girl died in the fire. No, Jack said gently. She just found someone who helped her walk out of it. She didn't reply right away. Then she said, You keep surprising me. That's kind of my thing. He stood up and reached into his pocket. I have something for you. She raised an eyebrow. He pulled out a small worn-out pilot's patch. It had his name on it. Jack Ryden. Torn on one side, frayed at the edges. This was my brother's, he said. I wore it after he died. But I think I don't need to carry it anymore. She looked at the patch, then at him. I can't take this. You can, he said, because it's not a goodbye gift. It's a reminder. Of what? That we don't have to carry our past alone. She reached out slowly and took it. She held it close to her chest, then looked up. Stay with me, she said. Jack blinked. For how long? She smiled. As long as the stars don't fall. Later that night in her quiet room, Sailari placed the patch beside the flower he gave her on that first terrible night. She stood by the window and looked at the stars. Once, she hated Earth. Now, it was home. Not by blood, but by choice. And sometimes, that's even stronger.